they're signed. So
sounds like a plan. But since we were kind of lightly on the topic of Marvel and discussing Deadpool, then we also kind of touched on how Beyond Spider-Verse is delayed because of the writer's strike. Another thing that's going on big, kind of semi-related to the MCU, good old Chris Hemsworth is actually going to be showing up in the next Transformers movie. And I know a lot of people were like, well, Rise of the Beasts didn't do all that well. And no, it didn't, but it wasn't unsuccessful. But basically, Hasbro, and I believe it's Paramount, are wanting to dive more into the origins of certain characters. So they're going to do a younger Optimus Prime story. I'm hoping it kind of focuses on some of the old IDW comics. So that would be kind of cool. But Chris Hemsworth is going to do the voice of young Prime. Because you got to figure Peter Cullen is pushing, what, 90 now? And he has done that voice since 84. That is a long history for someone of his age. And don't get me wrong, the guy who's in Resident Alien and also Tucker and Dale, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he has done like Optimus's voice in Earthspark. And he's spot on. And I know a lot of people are like, yeah, but it's not the original. Some of these original voice actors aren't going to be with us forever. And so it's nice to see that they're introducing younger versions of the character and trying to get more people into the role. And I think, it's going to be an interesting flick because basically, having a younger Prime, and if they focus on the IDW story, you could probably see how Prime and Megatron were once friends, and that basically the Decepticon philosophy is the same as the Autobots when it came to the Cybertronian Senate, but Megatron was the extremist, Optimus was more the diplomat, and so that could be really interesting. I'm kind of excited for it because Transformers and Chris Hemsworth, but that's just me.
Yeah, you're gonna have a lot of fans like, oh, it's not the original voice actor, yada yada yada. Yeah, if you go by the at least original cartoon, Prime was not the Optimus was not the Optimus we know him. Even the original cartoon, he was a completely different person. He got injured and he got rebuilt and redone and became Prime. So the legendary Prime that we all know and love.
By Alpha Trion, credit where credit's due.
Right. I just but it'd be nice to see that history.
Because clearly, I'm not a nerd or anything when it comes to this stuff.
But it'd be nice to see if depends on what version or how they write the script and how they take the story. If they're going that route, yeah, Chris Hemsworth fits. And when he finally becomes the Optimus that we all know and love, have their original voice come in as a cameo to do that rough voice, or still use Chris Hemsworth, and folks could explain or write off is the reason why Optimus now sounds so gruff, so wise, is because he had all these years, centuries, eons of fighting and warring with the Decepticons that he sounds
he
so
started out as, at least in the IDW comics, he was kind of a data clerk for the law enforcement of Cybertron, and that's what kind of led to him becoming Prime, because he started to see that there was a lot of corruption in the Senate, because like a lot of the Transformers that only have one eye, a lot of people don't realize this, but they get a whole head transplant when you're punished and you go through the criminal system. And he noticed that a lot of people that were opposing Senate and opposing some of their views were getting locked up and getting that surgery to become the one-eyed freaks. And that's how you wound up with characters such as like Shockwave. Say the helicopter guy with the one eye out with Skids on the Autobot side. I think I could be wrong. I know somebody screeching at me. But yeah, so that's why a lot of Transformers, you'll see they only have that monocle kind of eye thing going on with their heads. It's because it was like a very corrupt surgery. They would give them hooks for hands and one eye, and that was it. But I hope that with this story that it kind of dovetails with like a Megatron origin, because if they were to make a Megatron origin movie, that would be like the perfect time. Release the Prime one and then do the Megatron, but make sure you show bits and pieces of Megatron in it, so you can see the rise of him being a minor on Kaon, and the Senate being more or less, no, you guys don't deserve, even though you're mining all the energon, you don't deserve but barely 1% of everything you mine. So there's a whole rebellion over that. And of course, Megatron got locked up and forced into gladiatorial combat. And from that, he slowly started to recruit people to his side to kind of oppose the Senate and their corruption. And you can kind of see why he became what he became. And I think, in my opinion, that would make the best story. If you get a chance, find the comic books from IDW. It's intense. Yes, I'm a dork. Get over it. So with that, what are your thoughts? Do you think it's a good idea, like doing an origins kind of thing?
I think it could be a good idea. I'll wait for the trailer. I'll wait for what comes out eventually, whenever that might be. And because right now, yes, it's a good idea, but it all depends on
A writer's strike.
Not just so much the writer's strike, but how the studios take it, how the writers want to take it, how the director wants to take it, because because a writer could have one view, the director could have a different view, and the studios have a completely different view, not to mention Hasbro's involved. So you're going to have a fourth view in regards to this, and they could all pretty much fuck shit up in regards to the end. And whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing, we won't know until it actually either comes out or we see more to develop. So I'm going to hold my opinion, other than I'm interested to see what comes out, because I don't know. And without all the information, other than we're trying to tap Chris Hemsworth for this, and we have this idea.
Oh no, he's already confirmed.
I'm just saying we tapped Chris Hemsworth for this, and we just have to get everything else finalized. Now, how many times, Sasha, how many times have we heard, yes, this actor or actress is confirmed for this project?
And then you don't see him.
And it's like 3 years later, 4 years later, the movie never comes out, or we could have a whole aspect of a Batwoman scenario where everything's pretty much filmed and done, and it's pretty much, we're just going to put this right back on the nice little shelf, and no one's going to see it
Eventually,
ever.
Warner Brothers is going to drop Batgirl. It's going to happen. There is no ands, ifs, or but there. It's going to happen.
But who knows? But it's not the first time. Admit that.
No.
It's not the first time the studios have done that shit. But that's the point. I'm going to have to wait.
And again, everything we talk about here, you got to figure, again, that writer's strike and things of that nature are going to cause things to go a little astray. And one of the other projects that's kind of caught my eye, and I know you kind of caught wind a little bit of it, but Disney has already, basically announced a live action director, a director for the upcoming kiddie show to a movie. So if you remember the good old Disney afternoons, this was one of the more adult ones. Kenneth Branagh, I don't know how to say his name, but he's going to be directing Gargoyles when they do the live action adaptation of that. And that's been announced. So I think Kenneth is a good fit because Kenneth did the Thor adaptation. And I'm going to be honest with you, when it comes to doing a Gargoyles interpretation to live action, you want to get somebody with kind of like a Shakespearean background doing the whole thing with that show, because at the end of the day, there is a lot of Shakespeare that drops in. Like Puck's a major character as the seasons went on. And even Demona or Desdemona, if you're familiar with reading a lot of Shakespeare, dips into that a little bit. So as a result, it's going to be intriguing because Kenneth Branagh is a good choice. Now, nothing on casting, but yeah, if I was going to pick anybody to direct it, it would be him.
You might have a good director. It's just, again, casting, how things fall, how the writers want to handle things. Because, again, you could have a wonderful director, you could have a great cast, but if you have writers that don't give a shit about the lore, the anything else, yeah, you might have a great cast, you might have a great director, but you're still going to have a turd of a project. And as the saying goes, you could polish a turd, but you're still going to have a turd, just that it's polished. So, and there's been many times
what's his name still young enough or looks young enough to play the role of Lucius Fox? Because if so, that would be awesome. The guy from Star Trek: The Next Generation, number
1. Jonathan Frakes.
Yeah.
If they're doing it, they could dye his hair, but they could make Fox an older rich person. Either way, they could do it. The whole thing was done so well. The original cartoon, it's probably on Disney Plus, Gargoyles,
yes,
if they didn't remove it. But folks, if you haven't watched,
got a continuation that recently that's in comics. I think it's Boom who's doing it, and it basically skips that really stupid last season and throws that out the window and picks it up from the season before that. And it's got a real good through line. So if you're reading comics or you're into comics, that's one to look forward to. So I think it's Boom Studio. I might be wrong,
but still, the original. You have to figure Gargoyles came out when 90s, the early 90s, early mid 90s.
Yeah,
you have to figure, folks, that during this time you had Gargoyles and the X-Men come out. And these two cartoons were really good and for their time, really strong cartoons that hit hard topics, I mean, for what they were, they took things to a whole new level where, granted, Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, DuckTales were on a level. Somehow Gargoyles and X-Men were somehow a step higher. They were on a completely different level. So that's just one fellow's opinion.
And all I know is when it comes to casting Goliath, I don't care who you have in the rubber suit, but Keith David had better do the voice again. Because Keith David has that right timbre and tone. And yes, that is the same Keith David that played Childs in The Thing.
And the same Keith David that plays the president in Rick and Morty.
Yep.
And he's a chill dude too. He's a chill dude too.
I don't understand. He's really cool. Even though he always plays like these intense characters. So since we talked about like remakes, more or less, or even an adaptation, which would be more of a more fitting stuff. You had mentioned the other day that they're talking about doing a Return of the Living Dead reboot, but they're going to build off the existing franchise. Did you find anything more about that?
You were going on your hashtag rant. I was looking over the article. Other than there's a important article. Don't reload. That I picked up. It's like where was that line? They were talking, it's like, our reboot of Return of the Living Dead will expand the existing world created by the original 5 films. My thought is how
the original 5, so they're including those last 2. Rave to the Grave.
They're in Necropolis and Cradle to the Grave. They're including those 2. Other than the barrel that had the gas and the zombies in it, the battle, that's the only connective stuff that was at least in the first three movies.
Well, the first
Other
two
than
had a
that,
lot of the same actors and actresses in it, if you recall.
yeah, the
'Cause the
first two
guys who
had the same.
guessed in the first one. Yeah.
The first two movies had pretty much the same two guys in it that get gassed, but other than that, they had no. The two guys and the barrel that says "if found, call the army at 1-800," whatever it was. But beyond that, there was no connection between the first and the second film, and there was no connection between the first, second to the third, other than the barrel that had the gas, or the gas with the zombie in it. That's it. That's it. How do you what universe? There was no universe to begin with. That's my question. Just that
Right.
someone
It's kind of like
decided.
the Leprechaun movies. There's no real franchise except for the first one and Leprechaun Returns when that
Yeah,
was
it's like
done
the eighth.
years ago.
It's like the eighth one, and which I kind of liked because of the line in it saying, it kind of explains why the leprechaun looks different. It's like, I've been trapped in that well so long, I changed, or I think it was something along those lines. So other than that, they do not have any connective tissue. But what overall, or it's like trying to connect together with the Halloween franchise, which the main timeline has been fractured so many times, it's kind of hard to interweave everything. So it's like, what are you using in regards to this? Are you using
All
the
the
same?
TVA, clean up Halloween.
But it's like, what are you using? What expanding what lore? These barrels fell off the back of a army truck in transport, and one breaks open and causes a zombie apocalypse. Or are you continuing it
The
from?
only thing I could see them do with this, in all honesty, if they want to create a universe or a franchise out of it properly, they're gonna have to go back to the beginning. They're gonna have to go back to the very beginning drawing board of the first film. And they'll have to do a remake, a straightforward remake, hopefully not a Gus Van Sant style one, but axe the nuclear ending. Axe it, because blowing up what's that place? Louisville. Blowing up
Right.
Louisville, Kentucky, just with a nuke. Yeah, I don't see the military doing that. But everything else in that movie could stay the same, where you learn all the basics, and then they could splinter off from there. Because the second one was garbage. I really loved the third one, but Stuart Gordon was involved, so that wasn't going to be fucked up because it's Stuart Gordon. And then of course 4 and 5. Those movies were so bad I didn't realize that it had the same actors in 4 and 5. So yeah, if you want a reason to watch them again, watch them back to back, and you'll notice that it's the same actors playing completely different characters.
I think according to the article, 4 and 5 were filmed at roughly the same time as it is. So
yeah, but they're playing different characters, and that's got to be confusing. I will say, out of both of those nightmarish ones, if I had to prefer one, and they're both garbage, it's like, do you prefer the hot sitting in the sun for 7 days garbage, or this cold garbage that's been exposed for the last 3 days?
I will say before, if there's comments in the towel section down below, yes, the same two actors in the first were in the second movie, and the second movie acknowledges in essence, the first movie by saying, because the two characters say, I feel like we've been through this before, and it's treated as a joke, so they know it's a joke, it's acknowledged, so it's done wonderfully. It's there,
like the first
for
one
that.
is a dark comedy, and The second one is a horror franchise, is a horror satire of the film that came before it.
Right.
You know, it'd be like the whole thing with Scream, except then you have Scary Movie immediately follow it. It's not the same universe. They're just making fun of the first film. But regardless, like if I had to choose one of the latter two entries, like Raven to the Grave is one of my better because A, we got to return a Tar Man. Yes, it's shitty Tar Man, but it's still Tar Man. And two, just the whole concept that the trioxin 345 can be used as a psychotropic drug in a similar vein to ecstasy. I just thought that was kind of an interesting way to distribute it. And the people who become zombies are just those that have a bad interaction with the chemical.
I enjoy. I almost want to watch 3 tonight to go back to it because I somehow a part of me enjoys 3 as much as I enjoyed the first 2.
I love 3. I love 3. 3
because it was a very interesting take. It was very different. It was strictly zombie oriented. You didn't expect much. Just, it was
the Romeo cliche, Romeo and Juliet cliche was a bit much, but
it worked. It worked.
It's heavy-handed. It's heavy-handed. Right. It didn't change her name much. It's just Julie. And it's like, seriously. But regardless, it's worth watching. It's a good one. I like 1 and 3. If they do a straightforward remake, they really need to pay attention to what worked in the first movie. And the only problem I would see in creating a franchise is the nuclear ending. And that's all I would have to say on that. You could still use concepts of missing barrels being elsewhere, where they got delivered to the wrong place because typical government fuck up.
And that's always what got me. I watched it, I think a few weeks ago. I rewatched the first Return, and that's what always got me with the endings. It's like I think it was just a cheap way of, we burnt, like throwback to early in the film that they burnt the body or turned the body to ash and it went up in as a cloud and everything rained down. They did that as a way to kind of spread everything across that the army fucked up things even worse by doing the nuke, putting everything into the air, and it just spread across the United States, so to speak. So, or they could do something different, or they don't have to do the nuclear option. They could just drop like napalm in regards to destroy something. And
but
again,
destroying a big city like Louisville, it just doesn't seem right. They would definitely have a quarantine and a containment line. And they would either hope for the problem to burn out on its own, or they would send in squads to clean. Like, hey, there you go. There's your second movie. It's the Resident Evil 2 and 3 that we wish we got on screen.
I figure in the original film, no matter what you did, you couldn't really kill them. So it was against the norm of shoot them in the head or bash them in the head and they drop down.
But it was the first instance of brain eating, and a lot of people don't realize it. Yep. So props where props is due. This is good considering the fact that it was originally a script for a sequel to Night of the Living Dead because it was written by Dan O'Bannon, and I can't think of the other guy. They even had a novelization for it, which is completely different than the movie. It's more based on Dan O'Bannon and the other guy's original treatment. It's on the top of my head, but it's one of the other guys that have been running Mary Hobb with the Night of the Living Dead franchise name for the longest time. Like he made Children of the Dead. And that was a horrible movie. Yes, Tom Savini's in it, so mad props, but everything else with that film is just trash.
I didn't like the remakes of the first remake of Night of the Living Dead was okay, but the remakes after, despite who was part of them, actors aside, they weren't that good.
So,
honestly.
anyways, since we're on the topic of movies and everything else of that nature, obviously, Nintendo and Illumination, after the success of Super Mario Bros., is basically going to be doing further Nintendo movies, which is nice. They already have one planned for Luigi, which I hope isn't the sequel to Super Mario Brothers, but its own standalone thing. As weird as it sounds, I would love for them to do a Luigi's Mansion movie where he's busy looking around for his brother, which would be kind of cool. And then, of course, they have Zelda on the docket as a computer animated movie. And out of the two, the one that I don't have the most faith in is Legend of Zelda. Simply because every time we give Link a voice, it becomes a problem. Because the people who have enjoyed the games, they're taken out of it. Because when you play the game, you're Link. And yeah, giving Link a voice in any sort of media, be it a cartoon, live action movie, or computer animated, which is what Illumination would do, it's just going to make a lot of us 80s kids feel the okay princess thing, or
Excuse me, princess.
Princess. Yes, and it does get
You have
it. Does get pieces.
And the thing is, damn well us 80s kids are going to be pissed if that's not in there. You're going to have a bunch of what, 90 as a joke. You're going to have a bunch of what, 90s kids or millennial 90s kids wanting something in regards to, oh, hey, listen type of ordeal. They're going to want that in there.
It just depends on what story they crib from. Personally, and granted, I know this is a much debated topic, but if it were me, the only perfect Legend of Zelda game is Link to the Past.
Tell you the truth, as a geek and a nerd, I would love original production art from the Zelda series. So I would love to have that. It'd be one of those things on the ranks of costing me as much money as I shelled out for my Thundercat cells, but I'd love to have it. And meaning, folks at home, when I shelled out for the Thundercat cells many years ago, I got 2 of them, and it cost me about $300 a piece. And that's when the market for cells was starting to hit a low, and I got it at the right time. But those particular cells prior to that were going upwards to $600 a cell for the character I want, and that was Chichara. But now getting those Legend of Zelda cells from the show or production art from the show will probably cost me about that much. But for the moment, I am happy to have both a Mario and a Luigi cell from the original cartoon, one of the original cartoons. And the Mario cell is, sadly, it's not signed by Captain Lou Albano, but it was signed by the current voice of Mario. I think his name is what, Charles?
Charles Martinet.
Charles Martinet. So because he was at AwesomeCon many years ago, and I figured, why not have a cell of Mario signed by the voice of Mario? So,
but the only takeaway I can say is Illumination. If you're going to do a Legend of Zelda movie, it's got to be serious. We can't have the funny like from Minions or from the Super Mario Bros. Movie. It has to be handled seriously.
You could have a few jokes. You could have a few jokes in it, in those nods for the fans, but it has to be, like Sasha said, serious. It has to be taken seriously. Mario doesn't really have to be taken seriously. Or Minions has to take seriously. You could do something. Who's Illumination a part of? Who's their main studio? Is it Warner Brothers or
I think
Sony?
So. It's not Sony.
Who's their main studio?
I can't think of the name of it. I can't remember exactly. It has to be Paramount, because Paramount actually has been distributing a lot of their pictures.
So who owns Ghostbusters? Is that Is that Paramount
Columbia.
as well? That's
That's
what
Columbia/Sony.
company. But still, they could take the example of Ghostbusters, where it's a serious, even Afterlife, where it has humor to it, but overall it is serious. It is,
Yep.
I wouldn't say dark, but it has a serious tone in it. Just some humorous aspects to it. Like
But
you could
one of the biggest things I would say is if you want the kid friendly ones, you have plenty of Nintendo franchises that are kid friendly. I could easily see an Illumination Kirby. You know, it's a character that doesn't speak much and likes to eat a lot of things. It's pretty much just rebranding a Minion and turning it into a Nintendo property. You know, that's fine. When it comes to things like Zelda and Metroid,
Zelda has to be at minimum a teen movie, a PG-13, and almost a hard PG-13, mid to hard PG-13.
Or even just a general PG for like just adventure and just something of that nature.
Like in regards to the whole hey listen aspect, Link could be on his way from one point to another or go through a town, and he could pass somebody that is doing business, and there's that little fairy telling that merchant, that citizen, hey listen, sort of thing. That way it's a nod to the game. It's an Easter egg, kind of like what a lot of the Mario stuff did, and it's not in the forefront. It's not constant annoyance. And still, or Link could pass by somebody, and because a lot of times when someone is in a partner relationship, they might consider their partner their princess. So you could Link could again pass somebody, and over here in the background you hear that partner going, well, excuse me, princess. And it's a nod to the cartoon, and the 80s fans will get it, even if those two people that are interacting with that line look similar to how the cartoon had it. That way it's a double nod and a double Easter egg, yet it has no impact or relationship to the current movie at hand. And it's just for the fans. It's just for the fans.
And you could easily make a Donkey Kong Country movie. That would be, we've already established Donkey Kong in like the film series here thus far. But yeah, like when it comes to the more harder Nintendo brands, you're either going to have to take it a little bit more serious or hand it off to somebody else. So I'm going to be honest with you, I would be severely disappointed to see a Metroid computer animated movie. It better be live action, and it better be as close to pushing an R as you can. Or, heaven forbid, they dig deep enough into their franchises and make an Eternal Darkness movie, then get at your girl. I can tell you how to do that and write it. I'm not on you.
Or, if you really want to go with it, and Illumination, if you want to go down that road and Nintendo allows it, and you want to go through that whole self-aware aspect, do Captain N.
Oh, yeah. I honestly see them if they do finally do, because I'm thinking this is why Illumination is trying to do as many Nintendo brands as possible, because they want to do a Smash Brothers movie. And that would be a great gateway drug into Smash Brothers. You could just have Captain N show up in the background, kind of like what they did with Dungeons and Dragons, and the cartoon characters show up in like that weird challenge maze thing that they have to go through. It would be a neat little cameo just to see Captain N chilling in the waiting room, for the next bout. Or what's his name? Oh, from the Nintendo Power. Nestor.
He had that bow. Yeah, he had the bow tie or something like that.
Nestor, the character with the weird hair named Nestor.
Yeah,
bring Nestor back.
Yeah, you had that cut.
That like a forgotten memory right there. I just kind of hit the back of my almonds and was like, "Woo!" Yeah. But yes, They could do it. They could do easily a Smash Brothers. They could do a Mario Kart movie. I mean, they've already kind of set up those elements, but when it comes to Zelda and Samus, and again, if they dig as deep as Eternal Darkness, and my sick twisted heart hopes so, because a Nintendo approved and published horror game came out on the GameCube, always excites me. And that game screws with you if you never got the opportunity to play with it. Like, it'll make you think it's adjusting the volume on your TV because your insanity meter went extremely high because you're dealing with cosmic horror, like H.P. Lovecraft style, in a Nintendo game. But yes, yes, indeed.